Oh, no wonder. I was like, this is
Well,
over.
you stole
I
her
stole,
car.
I,
Go ahead.
well, I had, I just,
You can have the, you can
I
have the
wanted
rest
to look
of
at it,
it.
make sure it had all the right
There,
stuff
you
in
can
it.
have all of it. Got the rest. Greg stole it.
I know. Here she
You
goes.
need a microphone.
Will you please,
Sorry.
call the roll?
Councilmember Gladys,
Here.
Member Phillips,
Here.
Member Frieda,
Here.
I messed it up, didn't I?
That's okay.
Member Claxton,
Here.
Member Holloman,
Here.
Member Malat,
Here.
Member Doak, Councilmember Feldhouse.
Here.
They're all here.
Thank you. Anyone have any questions or comments on the agenda? If not, I hear a motion we approve as presented.
Motion.
Motion to.
Second.
Second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Moving on, public comments.
I do not have any.
Okay. Brings us to old business, which there is none. So the new business is discussion of our current retirement and pension plan.
I don't know if Mr. Lawrence is going to speak or Mr. Castleman. Mr. Castleman?
I think I'll speak first. and
Okay.
then-
Yeah, I was gonna let him, no. Only Josh Group. Okay, that's the who's in the back.
Thank
Go
you.
ahead.
If you'll identify yourself to members, please.
My name is Kyle Castleman. I'm the pension plan actuary for the retirement plan for full-time employees of the city of Shelbyville. The presentation that, yes, everyone has. Okay, great. This gives the current plan provisions as they are. The plan was closed to new employees hired after June 30, 2005. The normal retirement date is age 65. Currently, for employees who are hired prior to the close date, 2% of their earnings go into accruals to be paid as an annual benefit at age 65. As well, in their year of retirement, any accumulated sick pay is incorporated into the benefits formula, where the sick pay with their basic hourly rate is multiplied together to increase the last year of earnings. Participants can retire early at age 55. There is reduction to that accrued benefit if the participants retire early. For general employees, it is unreduced at age 62, and for fire employees, it's unreduced at age 60. So generally speaking, fire employees have a better early retirement factor that's applied, so there's a little bit greater benefit for retiring early. Participants can work past normal retirement date under delayed retirement, and they would still continue to accrue benefits. If participants terminate employment, they are vested in their benefit, 5 years of vesting service, which all participants in the plan currently are vested since the plan closed years ago. And that annuity is guaranteed for them, payable at normal retirement date. In recent years, the plan amended to allow in-service retirement for any employees who are over the age of 59 and a half that are working less than 30 hours per week. They can receive benefits from their pension while still being actively employed. And those same provisions that would apply for early, normal, or delayed retirement would apply. For death benefits, if a participant dies after they retire, so they've already started receiving their pension from the plan, their death benefits are dependent based on whatever annuity option they elected at the time of retirement. So if they elected a life annuity that is payable for their lifetime only, then there are no death benefits. If they elected a guaranteed period, so like a certain and life annuity where it would be payable for their life, but there's a 10 years guaranteed, then those would go to whichever beneficiary they elected at the time of retirement. And joint and survivor annuities are also available as well. And those would be continuous to their beneficiary they elected. So that if they die after they elected retirement and they started receiving their pension payments, then it's dependent on what option they elected. If a participant dies prior to retirement, I know this topic has come up recently, and we've been sending out some communications, or the city has sent out some communications regarding these. That, as it is currently defined in the plan, the benefits, death benefits prior to retirement are dependent on two things: their age and their marital status. The table included in the presentation kind of shows you the cross-section of what benefits are available. So if they're under the age of 55 and they are married, then their spouse is owed 50% of the 50% joint survivor. So it's the survivor portion of that annuity. If they are unmarried, there are no benefits there are no death benefits for unmarried participants under the age of 55, as the current plan provisions allow. If they are after age 55 and they are married, then the spouse receives 100% of the 100% joint survivor annuity. And if they are unmarried, then they receive just those 10 years of guaranteed payments in the 10-year certain and life annuity. So there can be differing death benefits based on age at death, as well as the marital status. As a large caveat to all of these provisions that I've laid out, the plan can be amended and it can be adjusted at any point in time that the city recommends and wants to do that. So if provisions are not, if you want to make changes to the provisions, that's quite an easy process and can be done retroactively as well. Retroactive to the beginning of the plan year, to really retroactively as to at any point you'd like, because as long as the city understands the costs and the benefits that will be going into effect. Do you have any questions for me?
The survivor portion? What is that? How much is it? So then it's a joint survivor annuity. How much
Yes.
is the survivor portion?
That's a great question. So when a prisoner retires, they have different optional forms of an annuity. And I think it's best explained as an example. So for instance, if a participant has a $1,000 accrued benefit, so that's like as a monthly benefit under the plan, the different optional forms are what are called actuarial equivalent. So equal in value, but maybe a different monthly amount because it's expected to be paid over a longer time. So if they have a $1,000 accrued benefit, then the 50% joint survivor may be $900, right? So it's a less because it's expected to be paid on a longer time. The survivor portion in a 50% joint survivor is 50% of that amount. So it would be $450 as a monthly annuity. Those are absolutely just examples, but it would be 50% of the annuity the participant would have elected as a 50% joint
Right,
survivor.
I'm just trying to figure out when you talk about survivor, the survivor portion, how do you calculate the survivor portion?
Right. It would, so as a
50%.
The survivor portion is 50% of the 50% joint survivor annuity.
Okay.
The survivor
It's
portion is that 50%.
that you could just say 50%.
Fair enough. That makes sense. That I would note for on or after age 55, for the 100% joint survivor annuity, that would be the 100% of that. And so the survivor portion is that 100% amount. So it is differing based on the age.
So you're saying we can retroactively adjust this? Can we fix the issue? Have we looked at fixing the issue that we have by retroactively fixing our pension plan? I mean, you know, we have a specific thing that we're talking about. I mean, can our pension committee not get together and fix this? I mean, that's an option.
It is an option.
Yeah, we-
I don't know if it's,
We checked and it is an option, you can retroactively
Yeah.
change that. You got, the way I understand it is, you're setting a precedent, okay? So anybody else who died in a similar situation in the past could say, they were due the benefit as well. But the reality is, you had a person under 55 that was not married.
Correct.
So there's not likely to be that many of those situations out there, if any. So if you wanted to change that, and for this specific individual, you would probably want to check and see, well, are there any other individuals that might fall in the same category? If not, then you're basically you're going to make the adjustment to accommodate the situation that came up.
Councilman Blevins, did that address your?
I think so. I mean, I think we should at least have our pension committee look at that. I mean, if we go backwards and find that we had, 20 similar cases, that may cause us a problem. But if we go backwards and we
He's
haven't
the
had
first
any,
one that I
yeah,
believe.
Can
There's-
you please?
Yeah.
What?
yeah, because I think it's a bad
Bruce is-
situation.
There's
Got a
one, there's
person
just
that died
one.
before 55, they had dependents, and they put all this money into our pension plan, and they're getting zero benefit out of it. I mean, I think,
Did this happen since January 1st?
Yes,
Yes.
So we could actually even
yes.
just go back to, if you want to change it, just go back to January 1st at some point.
yeah, I don't know if this committee has the power, but our pension committee.
Right,
does,
they make quarter,
Pension.
they're meeting.
Actually, we have a meeting next Monday,
Monday.
Monday after.
I think it's good.
Yes, so we could talk about that on the 15th.
Any additional comments from the committee?
I do have a question. We abandoned this 20 years ago. What was the rationale for abandoning it? Other than the large 25% gap in your coverage?
I wasn't here when they abandoned it, but in general, just like all most companies, they're walking away from these pensions because you basically have a liability forever, it seems like.
Continuous cost to the city? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and the issue becomes, every employee that's ever worked for the city of Shelbyville that got at least vested at some point, you gotta keep up with them forever. And it just, the cost, it starts out okay the first few years, but then once you get down the road, you are paying into a fund of somebody who has left you 20 or 30 years ago, and you're still having to keep up, track them, and pay into a pension plan for them, because they could still be eligible to draw from it, even if it's a small amount. So they'll have to keep up with it.
So it ended up being cost prohibitive, is what I'm thinking here.
Well, at the time, then they went to the 401k, that basically the employees, that's their walkaway money. They can keep that. We don't have a plan, we don't have a 401k plan that says you have to be vested, right? They can walk away.
3 years to 50%.
50%, okay.
7 fully.
6 years. But somebody that was vested in the pension plan, by that time, they would be it's all their walkaway money. That's their money. They get, like the situation that just happened, if they had a big nice 401k sitting there, that whoever the beneficiary is gets it.
Chief, did you have a comment, sir?
I basically agree with, Councilman Feldhouse there. I was here when that took place. I was here when they started the pension plan, when they started the pension plan. When it switched over to a non-contributory pension plan, when I started, the employee had to contribute the 2%. And then in 1985, it was changed where, the city paid in the 2%. And then they established a 401k also that the employee could contribute to. Now, the city did not contribute to the 401k at that point in time, so it was employee only. So they took up the 2% for the pension and then opened up the 401k where we could contribute to that, is how that started. Basically.
I was just gonna say, I don't know how many years, Alicia may know, but the city had been putting in 924,000 to this closed plan for years and years and years. Now, last year, we lowered it to 700,000. And this year, we've got budgeted 700,000. So in addition to putting in the 7% for 401K, for years, we were putting in close to $1 million a year. And I don't know how far back that went, but
We caught that up, but we was way behind.
Yes, that's
Right,
right.
We're up, you're basically 100%.
right, we were about 60%.
Yeah.
But we're
That's why-
actually putting in
More.
historically more for the 401K employees than we ever have for the defined benefit per employee. And we still have the cost of the defined benefit plan, but we're putting in more as a city into the 401K people than we have the DB people per person, as far as percentage.
We're putting in 7% on that. 7% of your salary goes into the 401K. You don't have any match.
but it ends when you leave. The other just keeps going, so it'll end up being more than the 7% that people get.
The pension plan is really an unknown liability because you don't know, first of all, what you're going to make on your investments. That's not guaranteed. And you can't tell when your employees are going to die, so you're taking a risk that is an unknown risk. And if you decided to open back up the pension plan, which is an option, literally the chief's comment is the question you need to answer is, do we want to put the taxpayers of Shelbyville on the hook for the next 40 or 50, 60 years for this long-term liability that's really an unknown risk? And that's why.
Can you please stand up?
Okay, sorry.
See.
Yes, and so that's why, and as Henry said, the pension plans are phasing out, especially in the corporate world. There's not any anymore hardly. And they're because of the legacy cost of those. 401K has a lot of flexibility as far as options for investments. I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. There's going to be more of those starting probably next year. But the risk to the city goes away when that employee leaves. Your liability is the 7%. It used to be 5%, so we increased that when, Alicia, from 5 to 7. 3-4 years ago.
Oh, no, it's a long time ago.
It's longer than
We
that.
had that retirement health savings,
Yeah.
2%
that
of that, and then
yeah.
it's been 15 years ago, probably. Long time.
No, it hasn't been that long.
Well, that's been
When I
a long
took
time.
it over, we
More than
took it over 2013. So it was 5% for a while there, and then I don't remember exactly when it changed.
Yeah,
but-
it was long.
I think to kind of put a big bow on it and to kind of encapsulate everything, pensions are great and 401ks are great. It all depends on goals, and where do you want the risk to lie. In general, pensions, the risk lie with the city in this case. And in general, 401ks, the risk lies with the employees. Because if the markets tank, then that risk is on the employees. It's ultimately, there's not necessarily a definitive one over the other. It's a matter of what are the goals in terms of making sure to remove as much risk and to be careful with as much risk as possible. But yeah, the risk is definitely on the city in terms of pensions with accruals further. So, and I think that's what all of these communications have been saying.
The defined pension plan now is very solid. All right. 17 million, is that correct?
18.
18
Yeah,
million?
we're 18, yeah.
The plan was right around 95% funded on current liabilities versus assets, and that has been increasing
Right.
because of the great contributions over the years.
Yeah, that was based on last year's numbers, so this year's numbers should get you basically close to 100%.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Or did you get the presentation?
I think that's all I have. Correct?
Okay. Thank you, Kyle. Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Greg Lawrence. I am the owner of Health Mart Corporate Benefits, and I've been had the privilege of working with the city since 2013. And as the chief said, when we came in and took over this plan, the plan was about 40% underfunded. So one of the goals we had was to get you to 100%, and we worked diligently to do that. And through the investment goals that we've put in place, which we're going to talk about here next, and well, fortunately, the market has helped us some, over the years, and that has brought us to a point where you're in much better shape than you were before we took the plan over. And I did want to just point out one thing that I think it helps put this in perspective. The final employee that you have in the plan, you hired when she was in her 30s, and she left the city 3 years ago. But you're on the risk for her. So however long she lives, that may be 40 or 50 years from now. Hopefully she lives a long life, but however long that is, you're on the risk for her pension. So it's a long-term decision. When you talk about a pension, you're looking at a liability that's unknown, and it is a very long-term liability. If we could bring up the Shelbyville review slides of our TSIS managed account services. I want to no, that's not it. It's the PDF. PDF of this.
I'll receive PowerPoint.
Oh, okay. Well, you guys have this, though, right? All right. Well, let's just go through the sheets. We won't have the PowerPoint on this, but since everybody has one, anybody not have one?
This one right there.
Right. This one right here. Okay. All right. The first page is simply a review through the third quarter, a snapshot of your financial activity this year. You started out on 1/1/25 with $17,264,376. The city, as Kay pointed out, contributed $702,039, and you made $839,000 on your investments so far this year. And so you're just over $18 million now in the fund as of the end of quarter 3. Any questions about that?
This is the defined benefit one.
Yeah, this is just the defined benefit that you're paying the $702,000 into right now. And as the plan starts to wind down, that number is going to come down because obviously employees are going to come off, and that as you get the plan is now fully funded. I'm not sure what the we don't have the actuarial report, but the actuarial report gives you a suggestion of how much you should contribute. Yes, you have a
How
question?
many employees are still on the defined benefit plan?
Like working or total?
Total,
We've got,
150.
yeah, I've got it broken. 77 are receiving a benefit. Former employees, there's 36 of them do a benefit, 31 active right now, and 11 are beneficiaries of employees that have.
So 31 are still currently
Yeah.
employed.
Yes,
That's a lot more than I thought.
You got
They're on this plan.
2 less this month.
they're in that number. They're out of that number. I took them off that number.
This morning?
Yep. Oh, well, you mean somebody quit today? Oh,
All right, I thought we were talking about the DT.
we are.
Okay, I'm talking about people receiving benefits. Because they're.
Yeah, this is the first of the year, and I tweaked it a
That's
little,
what I'm
I know,
saying.
several
It's
times.
knocking
and-
rather quickly this year.
Yes, it is.
People
There's,
are
I know
dying
there's
here.
Half as much.
3 or 4
Mr. Greeley passed away this month.
in the, okay.
And
Didn't
Dole,
know that.
And Dole.
Dole, that's
this-
two off,
this
that's
month.
2 off.
It's just one.
Well, there,
There's,
And like Dole, he's totally off the plan.
feeling live. So the life annuity,
Mm-hmm.
who's on life, okay.
Thank you, Alicia.
You want?
I knew this would have the numbers, so that's why I looked at it. So, all right, if no more questions on that, the next page is just a snapshot of the fund that you were in comparison to different indexes. So when we took the plan over, the pension committee selected among several different options that we had. There is a portfolio called the defensive moderate portfolio that's managed by Artesis, which is a financial investment management firm that is managing this portfolio. And the reason that we chose them is because right before we took the plan over, one of the reasons it was so far underwater is, if you remember, we had some bad years, in 2009, 10, and your plan took a 30% hit. And, on $18 million, 30% is a lot of money. And it's a lot of money to try to make back if you lose it. So the defensive moderate has mechanisms in it that monitor the market. And if the market starts taking a dive, there's circuit breakers basically in the program that will take you out of the market and put you 100% in cash. And this has happened several times since you've been on the plan. And every time it's happened, it's worked just exactly like it's supposed to. It's not that you won't lose some money. You usually will lose a little bit of money, but you won't lose as much as the market will show your losses if you stay totally invested in the market. And then when the market starts coming back, they may not come in right at the time the market starts coming back up, but they will, get you back in so you can reap some of the gains of that as the market comes back up. And, obviously the reason for that is because you really don't want to take the risk on losing if the market dives dramatically, which it has a couple of times while you've been on the plan. And so that's the reason that the pension committee chose the defensive moderate investment. Any questions on that?
So is that the 12-month return it's at right now, that 379 on that chart?
Yes, that's it. Yeah, almost 4%. That's not 12 months. That's just a quarter. See, that's through the end of 9/30/2025. So that's from January 1st to September 30th of 2025.
Okay, it says at the top there 12 months. So that's a year-to-date number? 379?
Well, yeah, that's a good point. It does say 12 months.
You'll remember.
Let me see. Well, here's the.
That's what it looks like, 12 months from.
Yeah, it is. It is 12 months because the next page shows the January 1st to September 30th. I'm sorry. So you're right.
So it's not performing very well. I mean, the S&P 12-month is 12%, year-to-date's 16%. So the defensive portion is really getting it hard.
Heavily invested in bonds right now. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But yes, it's not going to, and it's never going to match the S&P. Now you could change the mix if you wanted to, and we've talked about that of changing some of the money into a little more aggressive mode.
S&P is not very aggressive. I mean, it is, but it's not. I mean, it's a market with, so yeah, I mean, that's a pretty significant underperformance just to be defensive.
Well, you're taking a lot less risk, basically. Yeah. And that's the decision of the pension committee. And among the choices they had, that's what they chose. There is an option. There are options to accelerate the, benefit, or if the market goes up by placing more money in equities. And there has been times the portfolio has been more in equities than it is right now. Actually, bonds are a good investment when interest rates are dropping. The stated goal of the current administration is they want lower interest rates. They want it to drop by at least 1%. Usually, there's an inverse relationship between the value of a bond and interest rates. Interest rates goes down, the value of the bonds go up. It's usually about a 10% bump when for every 1% that the market or the interest rate goes down, you get about a 10% bump in the value of the bonds, plus you get the interest. So having your portfolio in a bond strategy right now is actually a pretty good idea. But that's not always the case. If interest rates are rising, they don't. Yeah, that's not a good idea. And
Larry's our investment guy. I mean, you're in investments. I mean, are you leaning towards bonds, or I would assume you're performing better than 4%.
I don't have any bonds.
Yeah.
But you have to look at the group, it was a group decision.
Right.
I always campaign to get more aggressive, but, and we have people walk in our office every day since about 2011 or 12, after the big recession. When the stock market came back, and this is their statement, the stock market is already so high, I really don't want to put any more in to be more aggressive. Well, hindsight, us sitting here like we are now for the past year hindsight is we should have all been equities.
Right.
Well, that's been the case since about 2012, if you look at it, with a few brief dips of a quarter or two, like we see here. But the long term is, you're going to make more money in equities, but you got to be having risk tolerance for that. And if some people can't sleep at night, because at that time we had $10 million and we had just taken a 30% hit, and we'd only been making in 2009, 10, 11, 12, when the stock market was jumping 35%, we were getting 2% and that kind of stuff. And that's when we switched to these guys, and we've at least got to take advantage of it quite a bit more. But that defensive strategy is what the group as a whole decided that they could tolerate. So my tolerance is totally different than somebody else's.
Yeah. We've had years where we've had 13% increase. So it depends on the mix, and that's determined by the strategy of the portfolio. It's all algorithms. I mean, they use algorithms to determine when to get in, when to get out, what to be in. But to Henry's point, it's very difficult to time the market.
Let me finish my statement, just like we're sitting here today. You see that it went along pretty good there with more or less the S&P 500 for that first 6 months.
Right.
And only since March and April, when it took the big dip, have we had a separation. Okay, so you as an investor now, is the stock market high? It's at an all-time high, record high. It has been like that. We're back in that same situation. Do you put it in there, and all of a sudden, in the next year or two,
It's the bottom fall.
we have a 10, 20% drop, and you're going to wish, I wish I was in more bonds. So it's a snapshot of today. What would you do? So it's not my money. It's the taxpayers, the frictioners' money. So we generally will be much more conservative on how we want to approach the investment over the long horizon. That's my philosophy to get it all out there. It's my money, I might be gambling with it. So.
And the actual number that you need to hit is about 6%. How do you know the number, Kyle? I think it's about 6% to keep your plan at 100%. So you don't have to get 10 or 12%. You need to get about 6% to keep your plan where it needs to be. And that's what we've been trying to reach, is keeping that number where it needs to be every year. The next page is just the quarterly snapshot. As Henry said, it's just, that's when the last quarter, that last quarter is when the numbers really started to diverge there. And it's part of that was the reaction to when President Trump announced the tariffs in April, and the market you know, you see the big dive there. And then, as you can see, you know, your plan didn't go down as much as the market did when they took the big dive. It did go down some, but it didn't go down as much as the market. The market skyrocketed when he started backing off, you know, and saying, we're gonna make deals. And, so this is kind of an aberration, you know, a year for the divergence between the two. If you look at the next page, this shows you a much more long-term horizon. Well, this is the annualized year yield so far is 4.68 from January 1st. The standard deviation is the amount of risk you take. You can see, you know, if you were in the total stock market, you'd be taking a lot more risk than if you're in the standard deviation of 16.64 versus 7.16. The annualized return since we have taken over the plan is 6.02%. So that's about where you need to be to keep the plan in good performance and keeping you, you know, right now at 100% of total value or total funding where you need to be. Any questions about that?
I got one question, and
Yes.
it might be way off base here, but, so, the way that this works, the city gives you guys the money, you just put it in this fund. There's no managing, you know, checking trends or anything else like that. It's just basically, we're gonna buy all bonds, that's what it is, that's what the city wants. There's no, hey, here's a trend coming, we think that the stock market's gonna go up and stuff. There's none of that, we're just flatlining on bonds.
That's a good question. The answer is no. The portfolio changes the mix. The actual standard portfolio is about 60% equities, 40% bonds. Currently, as we'll see in the next page, it's about 50-50. So, they change that depending on what the algorithms say the market direction of the market is going to go. Of course, algorithms can be wrong, you know, like anything else, because you can have a geopolitical event. You could have a statement from President Trump, you know, whatever. The market can take off or go down, you know, based on that. So, but they, you know, it's not a knee jerk. You know, this portfolio is not designed to be a knee jerk. You know, oh, the market's going up, we're getting back in. You know, oh, the market's going down, we're getting out right now. It's not going to go down as much as the market goes down when the market goes down. But it's not ever going to go up as much as the market does when the market goes up.
So basically, you know, and I'm just trying to simplify it for me. Basically, I mean, we're putting our money in there not to lose money.
Correct.
So we're not really going after to try to make money for it, not to be more flexible in the management of it. It's kind of triggered off what the market is doing, that we're gonna go 50% this and 50% that, or 60 that. There's never really, we haven't hired you to make sure that our pension goes up. We're making sure that it just stays at even.
Again, the goal is 6%. So what we want to do
is even that makes sure that we stay fully funded. So
right. The goal is not to take advantage of the big upsides, you know, in the plan, because with that is more risk. So,
but even with that, if you did chase the upside a little bit and you seen that there was a trend, you could go back to this.
Yeah, and that's what Henry has suggested. Yeah. Henry's more of a risk taker over here.
I think that's what you were saying, but I'm not an investor.
And we can look at that, you know, we can look at that again at the next meeting, you know, we can open it up to discussion to talk about changing the portfolio next.
But it is actively managed. We pay that small fee to the managers that watch it every day, all day, and they'll move funds in and out. They'll buy what they think is going to do better the next 6 months or a year. So it's not like we are not active.
No.
But we are paying managers to do it.
But to make sure that we stay
They got right, so they got
Yeah.
left lateral.
They have
that they're
the
going-
algorithm, the philosophy, or whatever you want to talk about, that we're not going to necessarily chase this fund that we think could be gambling when, they possibly could go up here, and we know we don't want to chase the one that's going down here, so they try to pick the middle of the road.
Right.
And that's what.
Right in this band here is where we
That's
want
what,
to
that's
stay.
where that is, because that is their stated philosophy. They want to attract investors into their fund that want that more steady, sleep at night, not worried about it if it drops 20% in the next 6 months, type thing.
I got you.
Yes, I mean, this is actually an option in your 401k, and you've got some employees that are in this because they want to have that sleep at night, feel that somebody's watching my money. If the market's going down, I don't want to lose,
I got a question about your fee structure. Do you only make money when this makes money, or do you take a fee regardless whether or not it tanks?
It is based off of the performance, yes. We make a small fee off of the performance of the fund. So we're vested into making sure the fund does well.
Right. But if the fund doesn't do well, do you still get paid?
Less. Still get paid, but we get paid less. Yes.
The investments that started January 1, the investment gain or loss is more than what the distributions were this year. So we're actually
Gaining a little
bit there.
Yeah.
But what they distribute out for the retirees is less than what the gains are.
Yeah, right at 18 million is where you're 100% fully funded. Right, so somewhere around there. Yeah.
Somewhere I think it's.
Okay. Any more questions on that? All right, the next page shows you the mix of funds, and as you can see, it's just over 52%. The first two are bond funds, so the majority of the money right now is in that allocation. Now, as you can see where it says fully invested allocation, that the normal model is actually it's actually 3% short-term, 19% intermediate bonds. So the normal model is going to be around 25% because you're going to have some bonds in the blend fund as well. But the normal model is not where we're at right now. And again, it could be that they're looking to take advantage of the lowering interest rates. It's a good strategy right now. As interest rates go down, it's a pretty safe bet that your bond portfolio is going to increase. And you're going to get that increase, and you're going to get the 4 to 5% interest rate that the bonds are currently making on top of that. Any questions about that? I think that this may help you if you can see where the full allocation is. That's where it normally, it has been there at times during the tenure of the plan, but it's not there right now.
But this is where our fund lies, right?
Currently, it's in the quarter end allocation.
Okay, but with these here, we're either putting more percentage into one or less percentage in the other. These are the funds that we kind of.
Well, they change those too. I mean, they
Okay.
change those out. Occasionally, they'll say, well, this one's not performing as well as we want it to, so we're going to change that.
Okay.
Yes.
That right column there, fully invested allocation,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't add up to anywhere near 100%. Or there's some left off.
It should.
I'm getting 86%. I was saying a lot of those percentages were lower than stuff left, so I just ran them through my calculator.
I'll have to check on that. It should have been 100%. So I'm not sure.
This is cash.
Could be cash, yeah.
So does it normally keep 14%
They keep some
in
cash. They do keep some cash in there. Yes.
Because the one on the left does add up to
Yeah, they just don't. They don't put the cash in here.
The cash, if they do keep that gains interest or, okay,
Yeah.
Not much.
Yeah,
not much.
2% of it.
Okay. Any more questions on that? Okay, oh, we did get it up there. Okay, thank you for doing that. All right, let's go back to the PowerPoint now. And, I just want to point out a few things. I mean, my goal and Kyle's and Josh's goal today is we want to make sure we get all your questions answered. And, so I assumed you had questions coming in here, and so I just put together a few things that I anticipated you might ask about, but you know, we want to make sure we get your question. So if there's anything else here that you don't see, feel free to ask. But what I did with this first illustration is we did a hypothetical analysis. So you have an employee starting work at age 40, retiring at age 65. He starts out, next slide, he starts out making $40,000 a year with a two. Oh, okay, all right.
Is this still
Okay,
defined?
I have the power.
You have the power.
This is still the
When
defined,
the man gets the clicker in his hand, you got a lot, you know, watch out.
this is still the defined benefit.
Defined benefit, yes, right. Okay, starting salary, 40,000 a year, assumed annual raise, 2%, that could go up or down, but the final salary after 25 years is gonna be around $65,000, 65,280. Okay, so, with those assumptions, under your current plan, and just to kind of review what Kyle just went over, the pension pays 2% of each year's salary earned, years work 25, pension based sum of 2% times salary for each year. Any questions about that? That's how the plan works. So in the final summary, after they work for 25 years, under your current plan, this employee would get a monthly pension of $2,133. Now, I just put the TCRS hybrid up here just to give you, the only reason I did that, just to give you an idea of how good your plan is. You know, so your plan is richer than the state plan right now. So, but that would be the monthly pension for this employee after 25 years of service, assuming the scenario that we set up for it. Any questions on that?
That would be life benefit only.
Yes. Yeah. That doesn't assume that they're going to take a joint survivor, and neither on the TCRS did I do that either. Yeah.
So that is considerably less if they were to pick a, what is it?
A survivor.
A survivor. And that.
Yeah, joint survivor.
Just out of curiosity, can you give an estimate of how much less?
I think I need
Other than the numbers, the actuary, we'll defer to you.
So the joint survivor, because it is expected to be paid out over a longer period of time, it is actually calculated based on the age of the participant and the age of the spouse. In general estimate, I would say probably like 90 to 95%. If you assume, approximately the same age, around 90 to 95% of the lifetime annuity.
Got it.
So 2133 times about 90% of that would be on a joint survivor annuity.
Okay, still more though. Okay, thank you.
Yep, of course.
So the,
Mary's a 20-year-old, but you're 80.
You know, Mary said
What?
a year. Yeah. He said Mary. No, I'm not gonna repeat it.
so
You're 80 years
Well, that's the
old.
only way I get my benefit.
So the TCRS hybrid you're saying is $1,300 a month. Is that including, it is a hybrid, so there'd be a 401k portion. I'm assuming
Not
that goes
including
along
that.
with it.
That's strictly the pension.
So that would be the only thing defined. So at the 2133, that's all you're gonna get, but with the TCRS hybrid, if that grew to the 2% over the same amount of period, then you'd be looking at $2,600 a month, right? Is that how that works?
Well, are you saying with the 401k piece?
Yeah.
Saying the TCRS hybrid.
Right.
Because it's a hybrid, it's supplemented with a 401k. So it's really apples to oranges to have that up here.
Gentlemen, if I may, ladies, we don't need to be talking about TCRS, they'll have.
It was the comparison up there. I just wanted to make sure.
Well, the 401K portion you can do with either plan. So you can do a 401, you can contribute to the 401K, as Chief said, in addition to your pension plan, or you can give, well, actually, TCRS hybrid requires that.
And we understand that, so we just don't want to talk about
Okay,
comparing something that's not comparable. That's comparing my defined benefit plan against a hypothetical TCRS hybrid. But the only thing shown on the TCRS hybrid plan is the portion that's not 401K. It doesn't show both portions, so that would give you a picture of what that would look like. So we should just talk about y'all's plan.
well, you could illustrate that with both. You could illustrate 401K with your current plan or TCRS. I just didn't because we're talking about defined benefit today, so that's all I wanted to show.
Yeah.
So, just to define benefits.
Because we had a 401K also now, if you did the pension plan, you could still have that 401K plus this.
Yes.
Theory.
But it's managed by the employee, which is the point of 401K, is it takes the risk off the city. TCRS can manage it with you for you, or you tell it what you want to do. I'm just saying, I don't know why we're talking about TCRS today. It's not.
The only reason I put it just to show you how good your plan is. That's all I wanted to say. You know, you've got, your plan is a very good plan for, the retirees that are on it right now. So, you should feel good about the fact that you're taking care of your employees, okay? That's just the point I want to make. Okay, now, one of the things that I was in the email that I got was to talk about options. And so I want to, if I could, just take a minute to give you a little bit of history of the CPI. Because the Consumer Price Index, because the number one risk every one of us in this room face right now at retirement is inflation. And I probably don't have to tell you that inflation has heated up in the last 5 years. You know, if you go to the grocery store, you know this, right? So your number one enemy when you retire is going to be inflation. And how much is that going to erode your purchasing power in retirement? And so one of the things that pension plans do is they do include cost of living adjustments, but it's based off of the CPI. And there's a gentleman named John Williams who has a website called ShadowStat. You can go to shadowstats.com, and there's a lot of information on here, but I've just pulled a few pieces from it. So back in the 80s, the philosophy of the Consumer Price Index was that your standard of living should stay level. So they had a basket of goods, and if that basket of goods went up 10%, that was the rate of inflation, because that means unless you get a 10% increase in your raise, your standard of living is going down. So the philosophy was use a CPI that basically says we're going to keep your standard of living the same. The problem with that is inflation was going up rather rapidly, and Social Security is somewhat based on that. So every time the CPI goes up, your Social Security recipients are all going to get a raise. And that starts to have an impact on the budget. And if we gave Social Security recipients the actual cost of, changes in inflation, it would probably, it would definitely be a lot higher. It would probably give us, we would be having some financial issues right now. So just a few things they did to change the formula was they used some different strategies, one of them being substitution. So that means if the price of steak goes up 15%, then they assume that a certain number of Americans switch to hamburger meat. Instead of eating steak, you're gonna eat hamburger. Now, that doesn't do anything to the price of steak. The price of steak still goes up 15%, but the CPI formula stays at maybe, they may say, well, that's only gonna be, we're gonna give that a 3% increase instead of 15%. Then they use geometric weighting, which assumes price of lettuce goes up. You got a fixed amount of money to spend on lettuce, you're gonna buy less lettuce. That's basically what that means. Then they more frequently reweighted the CPI from 10 to 2 years. Actually, that's gone down to one year now. So what that means is, like, this year's been a bad year for the auto industry because they took the subsidies off of the EV vehicles and the tariffs. So auto industry is way down this year. So what they will do next year when they reweight the CPI, they're going to say, well, the price of we're going to give new cars a lower weighting in the formula because fewer people are buying cars. But that doesn't do anything to the fact that the price of automobiles are going up. It just means they reweight it to give that portion of the formula a lower amount, a weighting, so it has less effect on the CPI. Then they use what's called hedonic pricing. So your cell phone, these cell phones, they add more memory, they add fancier cameras every year. And so the price has gone up on iPhones, if you've noticed, quite a bit since they first came out with them. And they do have, the new models do have more features. And so what they do is they adjust that for quality. The price goes up, they say, well, this phone has more features than the last one, so we're going to adjust the price down based on the quality, even though you may say, well, I don't really care about the extra memory, and my camera's just fine on this phone. I don't really need one of those fancy cameras. That doesn't, so the quality adjustment may not mean much to you, but that's how they weight it in the CPI. So, I don't want to get into conspiracy theories about what the government may or may not be doing to try to make us live in an alternate reality. But if we just, because they wouldn't do that to us, so I'm sure. But the question, if I ask the question, last year the CPI was 2.9%. So how many of you think your personal rate of inflation was greater than 2.9%? I mean, my homeowners insurance went up 35%. I'm on the county commission in Williamson County. We just passed a 6%. I didn't vote for it, but my fellow esteemed colleagues voted for a 6% property tax increase. So, these things are going to impact the residents, and it's a lot higher than 2.9%. And if you think your inflation rate went up more than that, what you are saying is when you are on a fixed income, your standard of living is going down. Unless your fixed income is able to keep up with whatever your personal inflation rate is, your standard of living is going down. That's the risk that you face in retirement, and that's the risk you face with a fixed benefit. And I know that a lot of your employees, that's what they like. They like the idea of, hey, I want to come here and get a fixed monthly. If I work for 25 or 30 years, I want to get a fixed monthly benefit out of it. And so I know that I'm going to make a certain amount of money, regardless of what the stock market does, and that's, as we talked about earlier, that puts the risk on the city because the market goes up and down to the city, not to them. But the problem with that is if you're only getting a CPI adjustment every year and you're not keeping up with inflation, your standard of living is still going down. This chart right here. So what John Williams did is he actually charted. The blue line is how inflation was calculated before 1990, and then the red line is how it's calculated today. And as you can see, I mean, there's years where there's 5 or 6% difference between these numbers. So, the way they used to calculate it and the way they calculate it now, based on all these pricing structures that I explained to you, is a lot different. And the blue line is more likely the real rate of inflation. And that's the whole point of his website. Any questions about that?
So, with that, I'm sorry, I actually have a question. So with that, we all know, like, just like you went over that inflation and how that affects it every day between, now and the maturity of the fund. But so with that, obviously, when you're talking about that fixed benefit, at a certain age, when I'm gonna retire, I'm gonna make X, Y, Z. So the obvious way to offset that would be besides the CPI, is a COLA. So is there a way to incorporate a COLA in the existing defined benefit?
We could. Yeah, that's something we could talk about. Of course, that would cost more money, but yes, we could do that.
Yeah, just to speak to that, that's absolutely able to be amended.
Y'all just made the best case for it ever.
Yeah, and the plan could be amended to allow for that. It would be an additional cost in terms of the future cost that is paid into the plan. So ultimately, it would just need to be looked at by the city to do that. But just like when we were talking about earlier with the death benefits in the plan is flexible as it stands right now. And if there's something that the city wants to look at to review, then it can be amended and add in the clauses that fits the city's goals.
Thank you.
Yeah, so I just wanted to show something that I showed the pension committee last year, I think. And we talked about different strategies when you retire. And so I just put together it's basically the same assumptions we had earlier. You had the 40-year-old making a 2% raise every year. In this case, put 7% in the 401k with the city match. We've talked about different strategies on that too. We can do automatic enrollment where we get the employees automatically enrolled and they have to tell us they don't want it if they want to do that, because you've got some employees that really aren't putting enough in right now. They need to be putting more. And I know some people's financial situations may not allow, but at least they could, if you make them tell you, no, I don't want it, sometimes they might get in it and they realize that they can live without the money, but it's going in their 401k, so it's giving them more in retirement. So, but if we did, if we did the 7% match, in the last 20 years, the S&P 500 has averaged 10%. So I just assume you put the money in the S&P 500 and nothing else. That portfolio, it's a 10% annual appreciation. This person would have $923,000 or a little more than that at age 65. Now, what the next slide shows is just an example, and this is just an example. There's a lot of different types of these options out there, but the reason I want to illustrate this is because the way to make sure that your standard of living stays the same when you're in retirement, the only way to do that, even with a COLA, because as I just showed you, a COLA is not, if it's based on CPI, it's not gonna keep up with the rate of inflation. But the only way is you've got to expose yourself to the equity market in some fashion, because that's the only thing that's going to keep up the rate of inflation, or, investments like gold and silver, which have done very well this year. And basically the reason they've done well is because inflation has really heated up this year. And part of that's because of the tariffs and other things. So what I did was I put together a little illustration, and let's assume that the person didn't make that much money. They only made $750,000 this is what's called an equity index annuity, which gives you the ability to choose an equity index, and this one I chose the S&P 500, and you can, and there's a lot of different indexes that you can put it in, but you can choose the index that you want your money to go in, and you put the money into the annuity, and then you can withdraw a guaranteed annual benefit. So in this case, this individual would be able to draw $46,000 a year guaranteed for life, which is double what your current pension plan would give them. So it is a very, very high level of benefit, but you can see the guaranteed withdrawal balances. They can withdraw money after 5 years. At this particular one, they usually have some fees if you get out early, but after you're in them for 5 years or so, there's no fees anymore. You can pull the money out and, and just do whatever else you want to do with it, or you can keep getting the $46,000 for life. And it has a death benefit. So that's another great advantage of an option like this over, sometimes a pension plan, depending on when the spouse dies. If you've got a joint survivor, which everybody's going to do joint survivor if you got a spouse. So you put your spouse on as a joint survivor. But if your spouse dies within a few years of you dying, that's it. That's the end of the plan, and your kids get nothing. And my mother just died, and my dad was he was a school principal for many years, and he was on the state plan, and so I called him after Mom died. I said, is there any death benefit? They said no. She got the benefit of his pension, and that's it. In this case, you get a death benefit. So, even after 10 years into the plan, the death benefit does go down based on the value of the accounts. But the point is, you're giving yourself exposure to the equity market. You're keeping up with the rate of inflation with this, and you get a death benefit, so your heirs will get something on a plan like this. And so I'm going to let Josh tell you a little bit about Voya in just a minute, but the new company that has purchased One America has equity index funds like this that you can actually put in plan. And so you could invest in one of these inside a 401k if you wanted to. And I don't think it's necessarily a great strategy if you're in your 20s because the fees are higher. But if you're 60 and you're 5 years away from retirement, getting in a plan like this where you have no, the risk, and this particular one is 10%. If the market goes down more than 10%, you're covered. If it goes up, you get 100% of the benefit of whatever the market is. Now, there's other types that you can get zero floor, so you don't lose any money if the market goes down. If the market goes up, you don't get all of it, but you get some of it. So I'm just showing you this just as an example, as a pension alternative, because that's what I was asked to bring is what options, and if you're talking to employees, and I know what they like. They like that idea of that fixed monthly income. This gives them a fixed monthly income option, but still gives them the ability to have exposure to the equity market. Any questions about that? Okay, just the next couple of slides. These are just something President Trump has announced in August that they're going to add a lot of alternative assets for 401k investors next year. And we don't know exactly what that means because the regulators will have to write the regs once they, get through with the public comment period and everything. So it may take 6 months or so before any of this happens. But it looks like there's going to be a lot of changes to 401k, a lot more options in 401k. There are strategies like this index annuity that you can do with hedged investments. It probably, it doesn't specify exactly what types of investments are going to be. It just says, private market investments, including direct and indirect interest in equity, debt, or other financial instruments that are not traded on public exchanges. So, those types of products will probably be available in 401k soon. So that's exciting because, again, you can protect yourself from downside risk. If the market goes down, but the market goes up, you get some of the upside, maybe not all of it, but you, you know, if you're getting close to retirement, you don't have enough time to take a 30% hit on your portfolio. You're not going to have enough time to make that back. And again, these, you know, Voya, I'm going to let Josh tell you about Voya, but they're, you know, they have plans like this that you can actually do now. You can put in plan these equity index funds that might be a good strategy for somebody who wants to talk about, you know, staying in the equities, but protecting themselves from risk. Any more questions for me? Okay, thank you all for allowing me to be here today, and I'm going to ask Josh to come up and tell you a little bit about Voya, and it's a new company that will be handling your 401k.
Thank you. How are we on time?
Hi.
Hi. Want to keep it to 5 minutes? Is that
10.
10? Okay. I can certainly do that.
Stretch to 10, 5 would be better. 5 would be better.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, as Greg mentioned, my name is Josh Griffith. I was at One America when the plan came over from your prior record keeper to One America. So I've been along for the ride since you've been with us. Recently, in early 2025, we were acquired by Voya Financial. And Voya Financial, just a couple notes there, they're a top 5 record keeper as it relates to retirement plans, okay? Whether that be DC plan, which you all have defined contribution, or DB plan, or pension plan, okay? So they're a top 5 record keeper on that. They administer over 7 million participants on the plan. So this is not their first rodeo. This is what they do. This is the butter that goes on the bread, right, for how they make revenue as a company. So I just thought, you know, can we handle your plan? Those are some of the things I thought would be important for you all to know. So you guys are scheduled to be in Migration 4 from One America to Voya. And that's for April of 2026. Okay? So I think a couple of the benefits I wanted to stress related to the migration was we continue to use your service agreements that you have in place now, right? So there'll be no repapering, cost structure, etc. will remain exactly the same, okay? Another one would be record keeping fees, as I just mentioned, will remain the same. We'll maintain the same investment lineup, but I will say we'll have a plethora or a larger options, more options to choose from at Voya than we do at One America. Okay, so that'll help as well as we continuously review on a quarterly basis the investments offered to you and your participants on the DC and DB plan. Let's see. The other thing is because they're on our same record keeping system, we're able to preserve all the history that you've had with us. So that makes that transition even easier for us to maintain that. And I would say the last piece that I think probably is the most important, no blackout period. If you remember when your plan moved over to One America, previously there was a period of time where the money had to move from vendor A to One America. There was a 30-day period of time where participants couldn't change their investments, reallocate, etc., right, out of the market. Well, with this, there will be a transition over the weekend. So when the market closes on Friday, over the weekend, we'll take whatever assets, whatever your allocation is, etc., we'll automatically move it over to your accounts at Voya. So that following Monday, you'll be able to log in, set up a new user ID and password, so that will be the biggest thing for your participants. But then see your account as is. Okay? And I say why that's important, or for many of the things we spoke of earlier related to the investments. We've had quite a volatile market from the start of the year and starting in April, right? So a lot of choppiness in that. By doing this over the weekend and make sure we don't move in out of the investments, they have a big rally or a big decline. We miss out on it one way or the other, right? So I think that's one of the benefits by having an underlying chassis at Voyas we do at One America that allows us to do that. Okay? Questions, comments, concerns?
Go ahead, Scott.
Well, I just want to make one comment. This has been a good, productive presentation and discussion, but also a lot of references have been made to the pension committee meeting on Monday. You're, of course, a council rep. Are you on the?
I'm not a pension fund.
Who's the other?
Miss Christie.
Okay. Do y'all think it would be permissible to have a joint, to allow the pension committee to meet in here and this ad hoc committee kind of get back there? Because you all will be here, won't you?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner?
Just be warned, you're gonna hear the same thing twice, so.
Okay. But maybe to drill down on some of the questions and concerns. So I'm just going to encourage this committee, if you can attend, what time is it?
It's at 2 on the 15th. Is that right, Greg? 15th?
Yeah.
It's at 2 on the 15th.
Okay.
So you want to have here?
It will be down here anyway, so we can just have it in here.
Okay.
Yeah, so we can just have it in here, and it is a public meeting because they do have 2 sitting council members. So, anybody's invited to come and be here.
Buck, did you have a question?
No, I seen all the investments and everything else that we did on the defined benefit, but I would have thought that we would have had a sheet on how the 401k and stuff has been performing and what the city has put in and, what the charges are. I guess I kind of expected that on that portion.
This is the opening meeting. So, I mean,
We'll have to cover that.
meetings.
In that next meeting.
That'll be covered.
You can make that, yeah.
Oh, so you're gonna discuss it in that?
Yeah, they will. They always give us a update on it.
Anybody have any more questions or comments?
Are we gonna do anything next Thursday morning for this committee, or are we gonna wait, or what's your plan?
I have been trying to get that meeting set, and I haven't had any luck yet. We actually have 2 more Thursdays before Christmas, so do you all want me to continue and see if I can get something set?
If we can get somebody in here, it'd be good. Yeah.
I'll let you know.
Any more questions, comments? Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second. All in favor? Meeting adjourned.